I stood behind the shed, rain dripping off my collar. The family was laughing by the grill. Burgers, smoke, beer. But no one looked for me, not even Mom. My brother raised his bottle. To real legacies, he said, then loud enough to cut the music. Not some washed-up vet wasting Grandpa's money. Laughter. From cousins who once asked me for rides. Mom blinked. Looked down. Dad stared at the coals like they held more worth than I ever did. 20 years in uniform. 3 tours. Dust storms, sand in my teeth, night watches with fingers frozen stiff. Lost friends, lost sleep, gained silence. They saw none of it, only the boots, muddy, cracked. Only the absence, not the scars. I didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just watched the rain hit my hands. Same hands that flew missions over Baghdad. And now? Useless, he said. The word hit harder than shrapnel. Grandpa would have never let them say that. He used to call me Hawk. Said I saw the world clearer than any of 'em. Now he's gone. They buried him without asking me. Guess I was buried too. A text buzzed in my pocket. From my cousin. Didn't know you were back. Thought you ghosted. I wanted to scream. But all I said, in my head, you ghost the people who leave you first. The grill hissed. Rain sizzled on metal. They handed out paper plates like I wasn't even born here. I stepped back. Mud grabbed my boots. Seattle rain never felt this cold before. I came home for closure. They gave me shame. But heck, I ain't done yet. Would you walk away? Or show them who you've become? Comment 1 or 2. The apartment smelled like dust in yesterday's coffee. Half a banana sat browning on the counter. No messages on the answering machine. Not even spam. I kicked off my boots. The rain had soaked through the sides. Cheap leather. Guess I'd waited too long to replace them. Like everything else, I opened the fridge. 1 carton of milk, 2 days expired. A leftover burrito I couldn't remember buying. I shut it without a word. The living room was quieter than usual, or maybe I was just louder inside. The photo shelf hadn't changed. Birthday parties. My brother front and center, me in the back, always cropped by shadows or other people's elbows. One frame had dust thick enough to write, "Forgotten" on. I stared at that one. 5th grade maybe. Wearing that itchy blue dress Mom said made me look more normal. I hated it. Still wore it. Dad told me, boys build legacy, girls keep the house steady. He didn't mean it to hurt. But it did. He used to take my brother to the garage. Let him hold the wrench, start the engine. I watched from the door. Holding a towel nobody asked for. That towel never got dirty. I joined ROTC in high school. Dad called it a phase. Mom said, it'll ruin your chances of marrying decent. They both stopped talking for a week after I enlisted at 18. Grandpa didn't. He sent a letter, written by hand. Fly high, Laura. I see you. I folded that letter 100 times over the years. Still kept it in my flight jacket. Even now, after he's gone. I turned on the lamp beside the couch. The bulb flickered. Another thing to replace. Shadows danced across the wall. In the corners my duffel bag, unopened. 3 weeks back from service, and still hadn't unpacked. Maybe I didn't know what home meant anymore. Or maybe it stopped meaning anything the moment he died. I reached for the stack of bills, medical, utilities, one marked, Fine L not to see. Each envelope screamed in its own way. Seattle was gray that week. But inside this apartment, it felt like something had gone permanently silent. Grandpa smelled like engine oil and spearmint. Always wore that same gray flannel. Cuffs frayed, buttons chipped. But to me, he looked like command. He let me sit in the front seat when he fixed the truck. Taught me how to hold a wrench, how to curse under your breath. Taught me that quiet was strength. Fly steady, he'd say. Even in storms. He never asked why I enlisted. just sent me a photo of a hawk, taped to a postcard, with one line scribbled underneath. You don't need to be seen to fly. I kept that card in my deployment locker for a decade. When the call came, I was in a Kansas motel, on my way to a job fair, trying to feel useful again. He passed in his sleep. My cousin whispered. Dad said not to bother you. Too far. Too late. Too far. Too late. They buried him without me. Didn't even wait 2 days. Said the weather was turning. I flew home anyway. Paid full fare. Got there the next night. The headstone was already placed. No flowers. Just a folded flag left in the dirt. I knelt by the grave, felt the wet soil soak through my pants. Didn't say a word. There was no one to hear me. Weeks later, they held the will reading, in a lawyer's office that smelled like lemon wipes and old coffee. My brother sat forward, elbows wide. Mom clutched her purse like it might get stolen. The lawyer cleared his throat. Read the list. Garage to Dad. Truck to my brother. Savings split down the middle. No mention of me. Not one word, not even my name. I waited. Waited like they forgot a page. But that was it, just silence and paper. My brother smiled like he already knew. I looked at the lawyer. He looked away. For the first time, I felt like I didn't just lose Grandpa. I lost my place in the family entirely. I sat on the floor, back against the fridge, cold tile pressing through my jeans. Eyes fixed on nothing. Even the hum of the old appliance sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else's kitchen. The silence felt heavier now, like Grandpa had taken the last bit of noise with him. Not just his voice. His knowing. His belief in me. But something didn't sit right. He wouldn't just leave me out. Not without a word. Not after all we shared. Not after all he saw in me when no one else did. I stood up, knees stiff and cracking. Walked to my desk, scuffed wood, one leg always loose. Pulled out the bottom drawer. The handle caught. Same as always, my laptop blinked to life. Fan wheezing, screen dust, lined. I typed slow, fingers colder than I realized. I opened the email we used years ago, before phones replaced everything, before distance turned family into a rumor. Inbox 372 unread. Spam, discounts, forgotten logins. I almost missed it. Subject: if they read this first, delete it. Sent 2 days before he died. My heart snagged that tone. It was him. Simple, direct, like his old wrench toss, catch it or lose your hand. I clicked. Just one line. Keys in the attic chest. Yours only. No greeting, no goodbye. No love you, kiddo, just a task, a trust, and an attachment. Blank file icon. I tried opening it. Corrupted. As if whatever he left was already fading. I stared until my eyes blurred. He knew. Knew they'd cut me out. Knew I'd come back broken. Knew they'd bury more than his body. The attic. I hadn't thought of that place in years. Back when I was 10, he'd lift me up the hatch. Dust always made me sneeze. He'd laugh, hand me a flashlight, say, truth's hidden in dust. You want it, you gotta dig. We'd sit for hours, tracing wood beams with our fingers. Talking about flight, legacy, escape. That Christmas, when snow trapped us inside for 3 days. He boiled hot chocolate in a dented pot, poured it straight into mugs chipped at the rim. Called me his co-pilot. Blood makes relatives. Trust makes family, he said. I never forgot that. Now, I wondered if he left more than a memory. If the real inheritance was never in the will. The hallway light flickered once. Then again, I turned my head. No sound, no shadow. Just air, but it felt like something had shifted. I stood still. 1 breath. 2. What the hell had he hidden? And why me? Whatever it was waiting. In that attic, the house sat quiet. No porch light, no car in the drive. Just moss creeping up the brick like it had something to say. I stood at the edge of the walkway, rain tapping my hood soft, like fingertips. Breath cloudy, key cold in my hand, same key Grandpa gave me after my first tour. Said, "In case I'm not home when you need it." He always knew time was slippery. The lock clicked. Door creaked open like it remembered me. But just barely. Inside smelled like old books and pine cleaner. Curtains drawn. Couch covered in plastic he never bothered to remove. His cane still leaned by the stairs. That stopped me. I stared at it too long. Then I moved. Up the stairs, slow. Each step gave a low, tired groan. Like bones shifting. The attic door was still there. Same chipped white paint. Same pull string, frayed from years of fingers. I reached up. Tugged. The ladder dropped sudden. Dust rained down, stinging my eyes. Cuffing, I climbed. Each rung creaked. My boots thudded dull against the wood. Heartbeat kept time. The attic smelled like cedar and damp air. Flashlight beam caught dust motes dancing. Like memories, I scanned the space boxes. Old blankets. A globe cracked down the equator. Then, there, back wall. Metal chest, military green, with corners rusted, still locked, but not tight. I knelt beside it, fingers trembling. Rubbed the lid like it might speak. Grandpa called this the old vault. Used to joke, everything a Bennett man owns ends up in here. Except this time. It was mine. I took one breath. Then opened it. Inside the chest. Time folded in layers. A stack of old uniforms. A creased at the shoulders, still holding his shape like they refused to forget him. Dog tags rested on top. Worn. Edges dulled by decades of sweat and war. I picked one up, his name, his number. My breath caught. Beneath them, a faded black and white photo Grandpa, younger, standing by a C-130. Smiling. Same crooked smirk I saw in the mirror sometimes. Then the medals. Lined up in a velvet case, dusty but proud. Bronze Star. Distinguished Flying Cross. I ran my fingers across them, feeling weight that paper never could hold. Then I saw it. Tucked between a folded map and a yellowed notebook. A white envelope. Thick. Sealed. On the front, in his handwriting tucks, for Laura Bennett only. My throat tightened. I held it like it might vanish. The attic dimmed. Or maybe my vision blurred. I remembered his voice, saying my name like it belonged to history, not just paperwork. I sat down on the wooden floor, legs crossed, envelope in hand. Fingertips tingling. I stared at it too long, then ripped it open. Paper crackled. Ink bled slightly at the corners. He'd written it by hand. Trfa. If you're reading this, it means they left you out. And that breaks my damn heart. Sertra. I watched you fly. Lara. I watched you stand alone when others ran. That's leadership. They never saw your worth. But I did das. I've set things aside. Quietly. Not out of spite. Out of faith. You are the true heir. Not to my money. To my mission. Blinked. Words blurred. The paper trembled. It wasn't anger that rose. It was something deeper, recognition. Not from the world, but from the one man who saw me clearly. I pressed the letter to my chest. Eyes closed. For a moment, the attic didn't feel so cold. I folded the letter slowly. Every line felt heavier now. Like it was meant to brace me for what came next. Beneath it, tucked in a manila folder yellowed at the edges, were documents. Dozens. Paperclips rusted. Some pages rippled with water damage, others marked with his handwriting. Sharp, slanted, precise. The first page had a bold header, F. Bennett Family Trust Restricted Access. I blinked. Underneath, my name in all caps S. Successor Beneficiary Luddigrunter. Laura Bennett? My pulse kicked up. I kept reading. It detailed a financial trust. Formed 8 years ago. Listed assets, stocks, property, an offshore account in the Caymans. Estimated total over 6 figures. Accessible only upon Grandpa's death. But only to the named heir, not family, not me. There were signatures. His, a witness, a notary, And a note in the margin, scribbled in pen, "Tra," kept quiet for her protection. Tor they'd never understand. My stomach turned. Not from the money, but the secrecy. He'd known. Known they'd twist it. Known they'd resent me for it. Or worse. Take it before I ever knew it existed. I flipped to the next page. It was a letter to a lawyer. Instructions to hide these papers, if Laura's status is ever challenged. My breath caught. This wasn't just inheritance. It was insulation. A shield. Proof. That I mattered. That my name wasn't an accident, but a damn decision. I sat still. The attic creaked around me. Rain tapped the roof like slow applause. Had they seen this? Had Dad? My brother? Had they read it and buried it anyway? I didn't want to believe it. But the silence at that while reading. The lawyer's eyes refusing to meet mine. It all made sense now. This was never about forgetting. It was about erasing. I ran a hand through my hair, palms now dusty with a truth I couldn't unhold. I looked at the photo again. Grandpa beside that plane, grinning like the sky belonged to him. Maybe now it belonged to me. They were all there. Same living room. Same old couch. Same cold air that wasn't from the thermostat. My brother was sprawled out, beer in hand, talking about the new boat he just put a down payment on. Said it like Grandpa would have been proud. Mom smiled thin. Dad watched the fireplace. Though nothing was burning, I stood near the bookshelf, letter and folder tucked in my bag. Waiting. Listening. You should see the deck, my brother said, smirking. 2 levels. Sleep 6. Guess loyalty pays off, huh? He looked right at me. No wink. No warmth. Just that edge he always carried when he knew something I didn't. I didn't bite. I looked at Mom. She looked past me. I found something, I said. Silence. Dad shifted. Cleared his throat. Didn't meet my eyes. In the attic? I added. Grandpa left a letter. A more silence. A trust. Legal. With my name on it. A still nothing. Like I hadn't spoken. Like the air swallowed my words before they reached them. You already got your years of glory. Dad finally said. You chose your path. You left. I blinked. I didn't leave. I served. You left us? Mom whispered. I almost laughed. It came out hollow. No one called when he died. No one told me about the will. My brother leaned back. Gus, you were hard to reach. Always off saving the world. Don't do that. I snapped. His brow lifted. Do what? Make my sacrifice sound like ego. Like I did it for show. Mom shifted. Pulled her sweater tighter, like my presence made her cold. Dad stood. Walked to the window. Rain tapped the glass. What do you want from us? Laura. The question hit harder than any accusation. Not because of what it said, but how easily he said it. I didn't answer. Because in that moment, I wasn't sure anymore. The silence clung to me long after I left the room. I sat in my truck, hands frozen on the wheel, staring at the same driveway I used to bike down every summer. Funny thing. You don't notice when you're being erased. Not at first. It starts small. One year they forgot to add my name to the Christmas cards. Said the printer messed up. Only fixed it after I brought it up. Another time, family photos were mailed out. Group shot at Easter. I was in town, but somehow, not in the picture. You came late, Mom said. You weren't in the mood. Both lies. I'd stood right there, behind the blooming dogwood, holding a plate. There was always a reason, always just enough to make me doubt myself. My 12th birthday. Cancelled. Because my brother had a swim meet. He won 3rd place. Got a cake. I got leftovers. When I cried, Dad said, "Don't be dramatic. You're not soft, are you?" That line stuck. Not because it hurt, but because I believed it. I stopped asking for attention after that. I learned to sit still during dinner. Speak last. Clear plates. Be useful. Grandpa saw it. He pulled me aside once, handed me a tiny compass on a keychain. Said, "You don't need them to point north. You already know the way." I kept that compass in my jacket. Still there, still works. But now, as I sat with the engine off, breath fogging the windshield, I couldn't stop the memory from playing. Mom telling me, maybe if you smiled more, you wouldn't make people so uncomfortable. Dad saying, stubborn girls grow up alone. They never screamed. Never hit. Just chipped away, until I wasn't even sure if I'd imagined the warmth. I thought joining the military would change how they saw me, make me worthy. Make them proud. But they didn't want a hero. They wanted quiet. And I've never been good at that. The apartment felt smaller when I got back. Like the walls had inched closer while I was gone. Even the air hung heavier, as if it, too, knew what had been said. I dropped my keys on the counter. They clattered loud, the only sound in the place. Boots off, jacket tossed over the chair. I stood in the middle of the room, unsure what to do with my hands. The envelope was still in my bag. The letter, the documents, all there, still warm from where I'd clutched them. I pulled out the photo of Grandpa by the plane. Set it on the table, next to a chipped coffee mug and an overdue electric bill. The contrast made my chest tighten. I turned on the lamp. That same flickering bulb, soft light spilled over the clutter, caught the edge of a dusty frame. It was me, in uniform. Taken right before my last deployment. No family in the background. Just a flag, a base, and a tired smile that tried too hard. I took the frame down, held it in both hands, traced the glass with my thumb. They'd never seen this version of me. Never asked. Never wanted to. All they saw was absence. Duty. Distance. None of it counted as love. But Grandpa, he saw effort. Sacrifice. Still called me his legacy. I sat on the couch, letter in hand. Read the last line. Toi, you are the true heir. Not to my money. Toward to my mission. See, it echoed louder now. More than inheritance. More than proof. It was a charge. A reason. For a moment, I closed my eyes. Listened to the buzz of the fridge. The faint hum of the city beyond the window. Quiet. But not empty. I'd spent years in silence. Years letting others write my story. Maybe it was time I wrote it myself. The phone buzzed once. I ignored it. Probably another spam text. You've been approved for a loan you didn't ask for. It buzzed again. Then again. I reached for it. Screen lit, number unknown. I hesitated, but something in my chest tightened, so I answered. Hello. A pause. Then a steady male voice, clear and clipped. LT. Commander. Laura Bennett. I straightened. Who's asking? Another pause. Then, presidential orders confirmed. Transport inbound. Click. Silence. I stared at the screen. No trace. No call log. No voicemail. I set the phone down slowly, hard in my throat. That voice. Too official to be a prank, too specific to ignore. But no answers came. 2 days later, I found myself back in the same backyard. Same worn-out patio chairs. Same family acting like nothing had ever happened. Mom had made lemonade. My brother grilled. Dad sat by the fence, reading the paper he never really read. I kept to the edge. Letter tucked in my coat. Eyes scanning the clouds like they might explain something. You staying long? My brother asked, chewing. Not sure, I said. He smirked. Figure you'd drift again. I didn't respond. I watched a bird land on the power line. Then, the wind changed. Sharp. Heavy. Glasses tipped over. Plates rattled. What the? My cousin started. Then we heard it. The unmistakable thrumming. Low. Rhythmic. Closer. Trees bent. Napkins flew. Chairs scraped. Then it came into view. Black. Sleek. Marked only by a small emblem near the cockpit. The helicopter circled once. Then began to descend. Everyone froze. Even my brother. My mom stood, shading her eyes. Mouth open. Not breathing. My dad rose slowly, paper slipping from his hand. The rotors kicked up dust. Grass bent flat. Smoke from the grill twisted midair. When the door opened, a man in uniform stepped out. Pressed blues. No smile. He walked straight toward me. Boots clean. Steps precise. Stopped 5 feet away. Raised his hand in salute. Admiral Bennett, ma'am. Presidential promotion confirmed. Transport standing by. Gasps. Actual audible gasps. My brother dropped his drink. Mom clutched her necklace. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I reached into my coat. Pulled out Grandpa's letter. Held it up slow. Said nothing. Didn't need to. Because in that moment, Truth didn't shout. It landed. The wind still churned the air. Dust curled around their feet. Plastic cups rolled across the lawn. The grill hissed from spilled beer. But no one moved. Not my father, who now gripped the porch rail like it might give him answers. Not my mother, whose lips parted slightly as if forming a prayer. And not my brother, jaw clenched, eyes darting, looking for a lie to hold onto. But there was nothing left to deny. I didn't explain. Didn't hand them the folder or the trust. Didn't tell them the promotion wasn't new. Just classified. I simply held Grandpa's letter. The one with his handwriting. With the words that gave me back my name. They all saw it. No one asked what it said. Maybe they already knew. The officer nodded once, then stepped aside, waiting. I looked around the yard one last time. The same patch of grass where we used to play catch. The oak tree, with initials carved from some forgotten cousin's crush. The folding chairs, now half toppled by the rotors. This was the house that raised me, without ever quite welcoming me. This was where silence grew teeth. I turned toward the chopper. My boots pressed deep into the soft lawn. Each step steadier than the last. Behind me, I heard my brother say something under his breath, maybe my name, maybe not. But I didn't turn back. I climbed aboard. Cabin warm. Muted hum of equipment. The door sealed with a heavy thud. Soundproofed from everything outside. Even memory. The pilot gave me a glance, then nodded toward the headset. Ma'am. Ready when you are. I settled in. Buckled up. Looked out the window. They were still standing there. Still staring. Still silent. The blades lifted. Slow. Deliberate. Power gathering beneath me. And then we rose. The yard shrank. The house became a block of beige and shadow. The people below, smaller than I remembered. I exhaled. Not in relief. Not in triumph. But in clarity. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was recognition. And for the first time, I didn't feel erased. I felt seen. No headlines. No phone calls. No parade. The day after the chopper landed, Seattle kept moving. Traffic lights blinked like always. Coffee shops hummed. Nobody noticed a promotion that never made the news. And I was okay with that. I sat at the small kitchen table, sunlight pooling across the documents Grandpa left behind. Legal jargon. Land use permits. Old sketches of a building labeled S. Veteran Women's Center, South Seattle. His handwriting marked every margin. Notes, questions, dreams he'd never voiced out loud. I traced the ink with my finger. My name popped up again and again. Laura, lead outreach. Laura, hire vet therapists only. Os. He'd planned for me. Not just as legacy, as a leader. I looked up from the papers. The apartment was still. Only the ticking wall clock reminded me I was still part of time. I hadn't heard from anyone. Not Dad. Not Mom. Not even my brother. The silence used to sting. Now it felt clean. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee. Opened the window. Rain on concrete. Seattle's perfume. My laptop buzzed. An old military contact had replied. Said he knew someone at a local foundation. Might be able to help with a grant. It wasn't much, but it was something. I replied with 2 lines. Clear. Professional. Grateful. Then sat back. Let the steam from the mug hit my face. Warmth, for once, without strings. Still, somewhere in me, a quiet voice asked if off. What if they're right? What if you're still just a soldier trying to build something out of nothing? I closed my eyes. That's the thing about nothing, I thought. It makes space for what matters. The next morning, I opened the contact list I hadn't touched in years. Half the numbers were dead. A few bounced back, but some rang. Some even picked up. Lara. Mom, that you? Thought you dropped off the map. I didn't explain much. Just enough. Starting something for women vets. Private, quiet. Focused. You in? Most asked one question. We're. And then, without hesitation. We're in, Admiral. That word still hit different. Not because it sounded powerful, but because they meant it. I started writing names on a notepad. Riley, Air Force nurse, Colorado. Tran Logistics, last saw her in Kuwait. Simone Communications, one of the sharpest I knew. I paused over each name. Not just recalling rank, but the things they carried. Stories never filed in reports. I added check marks next to the ones who'd responded. Circled 3. Put a question mark beside one Harris. She hadn't replied. But I remembered her laugh during blackout drills. Loud, unapologetic, a knock at the memory. I scribbled another note: Ox, coffee room, natural light, no mirrors. No moon, not for vanity, but because some of us couldn't look at our faces for years. I flipped through Grandpa's folder again. Blueprints. A property listing. An old email chain with a city planner. I underlined a sentence: Ox, zoned and ready. Just need someone with backbone. I leaned back in my chair, pen tapping against the edge of the table. Was this enough? Could this small ripple become something that pulled other women to shore? Or was I just playing at healing while the world still looked the other way? I didn't know. But I knew this. The ones who answered weren't asking for permission. They were asking for place. And maybe, after everything, I could give them that, even if I had to build it alone. The email came at 6:14 a.m. Subject, as RE, proposal review, tentative approval. I blinked twice before opening it. Simple message. Polite. Warm. Tra. We'd love to hear more about your vision. Sure, are you available to meet next Thursday? No fireworks. No dramatic lines. Just momentum. And for me, that was everything. I printed the email, stapled it to my proposal draft, slid both into a folder marked Legacy. I dressed quiet. Black jeans, clean sweater, same boots. Didn't bother with makeup. Not for them. This was for me. I walked 3 blocks to a coffee shop tucked under an overpass. Smelled like burnt espresso and old wood. The barista had purple hair and no smile. I liked her already. I ordered drip coffee, no cream. Took the back table. Opened my folder. Pages spread out like blueprints of a life not yet built. Funding goals. Staffing needs. Projected timeline. At the top of every page. Athos Laura Bennett, director. I ran my finger under the line. Not to check spelling. Just to feel it. No one else knew. Not my parents. Not my brother. Not even my cousin who used to text once a month. And I didn't feel guilty about that. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to explain myself. I took a sip. Hot. Bitter. Real. Outside, the rain started again. Seattle gray. Always familiar. Never friendly. But this time, it didn't feel like something closing in. It felt like something washing clean. I pulled out Grandpa's letter one more time. Folded, worn, the edges starting to split. His words echoed beneath the cafe buzz. To legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build while you're still here. I folded the pages back into the folder. Zipped my coat, straightened my spine. I wasn't building this for revenge. Not for recognition. Not even for healing. I was building it because no one else had. And that was reason enough. The ink dried slow. I watched my name settle on the dotted line. Us, Laura Bennett, founder and executive director. Like it had been waiting there all along. The notary across the table didn't smile. Didn't need to. Her nod said enough. Paper slid across laminate. One more signature. Then another. By the time I walked out, my name was on every document tied to the Bennett Center. Official. Visible. Undeniable. It felt like fire. Not the kind that burns. The kind that clears space. I took the bus back. Didn't want the quiet of a car. Wanted movement. Noise. Windows that rattled. I held the folder close. Documents pressed flat but pulsing, like they knew what they meant. Inside. Grandpa's letter, the trust, notarized property listing with my name, added approval email from the Vet Foundation, 2 signed letters of commitment from my former unit. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. I laid it all out across my kitchen table that night. The same one where I'd cried into coffee. Now covered in proof. Proof I existed. Proof I mattered. Proof they couldn't erase. I ran my fingers down the edge of the file folder, nails catching slightly on the worn cardboard. Part of me wanted to tell them. Mom, Dad, even my brother. Not for approval. Not even acknowledgement. Just so they'd know. I'd built something. But then I remembered the porch. The silence. The question. What do you want from us? And I realized. I didn't want anything from them. Not anymore. That was the revenge. Not shouting, not pointing. But becoming too solid to ignore. I opened my laptop. Typed out the first public mention. Website draft. Landing page headline. TWI. A space built by women who served. Tour for women still standing. Say underneath it. My name again. This time, my hands didn't shake. The cursor blinked. Top of the screen? Draft. Regarding the Bennett Trust and Center. I stared at the subject line too long, like it might answer the question for me. The email was written, tight, clear, professional. Attached, the notarized trust. Grandpa's handwritten letter, transfer documents. Project summary for the center. I'd even written a short note. Try. This is not an attack. It's a correction. But I hadn't hit send. My finger hovered. Paused. Tensed. Outside, rain kissed the windows. Seattle again? Always gray when decisions mattered. I leaned back in my chair. Let the silence fill the room. Only the fridge hummed. Steady like breath. Why did I want to send it? To prove a point. To clear my name. Or just to feel something land where silence had ruled. I thought about Mom's face that day by the grill. Blank. But trembling around the edges. Dad gripping the porch. Brother looking for a joke that didn't land. Would this email bring closure? Or just more cold? I closed my eyes. Heard Grandpa's voice, soft but certain. Tarai, you don't need noise to be heard, Hawk. Tor just altitude. Said I opened my eyes. Looked at the screen again. Deleted the subject line. Typed something else. You'll see. Then deleted that too. I clicked, save draft. I closed the tab, shut the laptop. Not out of fear. Not out of mercy. Because I'd realized. This wasn't the time, not the place. Let them hear it when it echoes. Not when I ask. Let them find out when the sign goes up, when the ribbon cuts, when a news anchor reads the plaque with my name on it. Not from an email they'd ignore. I stood up, paced once, let the moment settle. I wasn't hiding. I was choosing. There's a difference. The printer hummed. Steady. Final. Spitting out the last page of the event program. I pulled it from the tray, edges still warm. On the cover, Osser, the Bennett Center, grand opening. Below it, a single line. For the women who kept flying. I read it 3 times. Still didn't feel real. I stacked the programs, tucked them into a canvas tote, then checked my email again. Inbox 0. No message from Mom. No. Heard you're doing something big. No forwarded article. Not even a typo, written text from my brother. Nothing. I stared at the blank space a little longer than I meant to. Then shut the laptop. Maybe silence was all they had left. Maybe that was fine. I opened the guest list again. 52 names. All women. All served. All said yes. Simone would fly in from Houston. Riley was driving cross-country. Even Tran had confirmed. First time she'd left the base in 5 years. Every RSVP was another brick in the foundation. Not concrete. People. I printed name tags. Checked the catering form. Made sure we had strong coffee. None of that weak city stuff. At the bottom of the checklist, one note in Grandpa's handwriting, scanned and pasted. To Rai. If one woman walks through these doors and remembers she's not alone, it was worth it. I placed that line at the entrance sign. Big, centered. The final decision was whether to leave a seat empty. A part of me wanted to. A gesture. A gap. But no. I'd spent too long living in empty spaces. So I filled it. With a new chair. With someone invited. With someone who showed up. I pulled out my own outfit for the day. Pressed the blouse flat. Pinned the name tag to the left side. A Foz Laura Bennett founder. It felt too quiet in the room, but not in a lonely way. Just ready. I looked around once more. Table set. Folders aligned. Door waiting to be opened. I didn't need anyone else to validate this moment. Because for the first time, I had shown up for myself. The morning air bit sharp. Seattle never promised sunshine, but the sky held steady. Clouded, not cruel. I arrived early, keys in hand. Door stiff from fresh paint. Inside smelled like pine paper. And new beginnings. Volunteers buzzed around, setting up folding chairs, adjusting mics. One woman wrestled with a banner that wouldn't hang straight. I smiled, helped her fix it. The words finally uncurled us. The Bennett Center grand opening. By 10:15, the room had filled. More than we expected. Simone hugged me so tight my shoulder cracked. Riley brought muffins. Even Tran, quiet as ever, held my hand longer than needed. No one asked about my family. No one had to. These were the people who knew what absence looked like and never asked it to explain itself. The city rep gave a short speech. Nice enough. Safe. Then a woman from the Vet Foundation spoke. Eyes wet, voice firm. Spaces like this don't appear out of nowhere. They come from someone who refused to disappear. I swallowed hard. Didn't trust my voice just yet. Before the ribbon cutting, a reporter stood. Press badge clipped to her jacket, mic in hand. I'd like to read something, she said. Everyone quieted. She unfolded a printed sheet. Sure. On behalf of the President of the United States, we acknowledge and honor the quiet service, leadership, and continued impact of Admiral Laura Bennett. We thank you for your invisible strength, and now, we see you. The words hung heavy, and then, silence. Not awkward, not uncertain, just full. My eyes didn't water, but my chest pulled tight, like my body had been waiting years to exhale. No one clapped, not right away. First, they stood, row by row, slow, deliberate, like they understood what it meant to finally be called by your real name. The podium felt taller than I remembered, or maybe I just hadn't stood this way in a long time. Straight. Not for show. Not for parade rest. Just because this moment asked for it. I cleared my throat. Microphone buzzed. Then settled. 50 eyes looked up. Some teary, some defiant, none waiting for a performance. I didn't prepare notes. Didn't rehearse. I just spoke. I won't talk long. A quiet chuckle rippled. The kind that says, we get it. We've been there. I won't talk about where I've been. Most of you already know. I paused. I won't talk about who didn't show up, because look around. The ones who matter did. Heads nodded. Someone near the back whispered, damn right. I smiled. Small, but real. I built this place because too many of us built everything. Except a place for ourselves. I built this because silence is a room with no doors. And we deserved better than that. A shift in the room, a breath being held, then released. Some of us came home to parades, some to paperwork, some to nothing. But we all carried something back: grief, guilt, ghosts, strength no one ever asked for, and still expected us to have. I let that sit. Today, we open this space, not to be thanked, not to be studied, but to belong. I looked down once, then back up, locked eyes with the camera. This space is ours now, and we're not leaving. Silence again. Then applause. Not thunderous, not forced, just enough. Enough to say we heard you, we believe you, we're still here. I stepped back. Let the next speaker take her place. Didn't need to linger. The words were already settled. Not in the air, but in them. And for once, that was where I wanted to live. The chairs emptied slowly. No rush. No awkward exits. Just a quiet hush of movement. Feet, voices, the occasional deep breath. I shook hands. Accepted hugs I didn't expect. Smiles, some with tears behind them. Nobody said, "You did it." But I could feel it in their hands. Simone handed me a water bottle, tapped 2 fingers to my shoulder, then drifted back into the crowd. The catering team packed trays. One of the city reps grabbed an extra muffin, for the road. Even the banner stayed up. I walked to the back of the room, checked the folded chairs, ran my hand along the welcome table. Then I heard her. Soft steps. Heels clicking, polite. The same reporter from earlier, notebook in hand. Eyes scanning quick, sharp. She smiled. Not pushy. "Mom," she said. "Just one more question." I raised a brow. She lowered her voice. "Does your family know about today?" Silence. No wind. No soundtrack. Just that question hanging between us like a thread waiting to snap. I didn't answer. Didn't nod. Didn't shake my head. Just smiled. Not bitter. Not smug. Just sure. She blinked once. Wrote nothing. Then tucked her pen away. "Thank you," she said. I watched her walk out. No camera followed. No second question. I stood alone again. Not lonely. Just still. The late afternoon light poured in through the tall windows, caught the gold lettering on the wall. The Bennett Center. The letters glowed soft. Not grand. But undeniable. I walked up to them, let my fingers rest on the B, solid wood, fresh paint. It wasn't a monument, it was an answer. Behind me, footsteps. Not loud. Not hesitant. Simone. She didn't say a word. Just placed her hand on my back, right between the shoulder blades. Held it there for a moment. Then walked away. I stayed. Long enough to hear the echo fade. Long enough to know this wasn't the end. Just the part where justice didn't need noise, because it had form now, and a name. Mine. The floor creaked, just once, as the front door swung open. 3 women stood just outside, each holding a folded piece of paper in one hand and hesitation in the other. Young, but not untested. Eyes that had seen too much, shoulders pulled tight like they'd forgotten how to rest. I smiled. Not the wide, bright kind. The quiet one. The kind that says, "Yeah, I see it too. Come in," I said. Held the door. Let them cross the threshold without fanfare. Rain trailed behind their boots, leaving thin streaks across the entry tile. Seattle never lets anyone enter dry. They stood there, taking it in. Walls painted soft earth tones, bookshelves, soft chairs. A bulletin board filled with names, resources, and one hand-drawn sign that read, "Was. You don't have to be okay to belong." One of them, the youngest, maybe mid-20s, glanced at the wall beside the check-in desk. Our mission statement was carved into wood. Torv. Built by women who served. Tor for women still standing. Sus. She read it twice. Didn't say a word. But her hand found the edge of the desk, held it like something solid. I remembered that feeling. The first place that didn't ask you to explain the crack in your voice. Or why your back stiffened when the door clicked too hard. "Coffee's fresh?" I said. "Kitchen's down the hall. You can just sit today if you want." They all nodded, but didn't move. Not yet. I didn't push. Just walked with them down the corridor. One had a duffel bag, frayed. Another wore a jacket 3 winters old. The third didn't carry anything. Just walked like she had too much to hold already. At the end of the hall, a light spilled out from a round room. No corners, no closed doors. In that room, 4 women sat already. 1 reading, 2 playing cards, 1 just watching. I stopped at the threshold. Let the 3 find their own pace. They hesitated. Then stepped forward. I stayed behind. Let the door swing slowly back toward me. Let the hum of voices grow behind it. On the wall outside that room, a small bronze plaque sat mounted in cedar. I brushed dust from the edge. It read, "S. the Bennett Center, in memory of those who were erased. In honor of those who returned anyway." I ran my fingers over my name underneath, not for pride. For proof. Then I whispered something I hadn't said in years. Home. It came on a Tuesday. A small white envelope, tucked between donation forms and a flyer for plumbing services. No return address. No stamp mark I recognized. Just my name, handwritten. Pressed hard enough to show through the back. I knew that handwriting. Even after all this time. I didn't open it right away. I made tea. Turned off the noise machine in the hallway. Closed the office door. Then I sat at the small table by the window, where the afternoon light hit just right, and opened the letter. The paper smelled faintly of lavender. Old purse perfume. Still familiar. The first line was simple. "Toi, you don't have to read this. But I had to write it." She didn't sign her name. Didn't say, "Love, Mom," but it was her. The rhythm of the words. The way she didn't cross her teats. The way she used the word, maybe? 3 times in one paragraph. She didn't mention the ceremony. Didn't ask about the center. She wrote about a scarf. One I'd lost in 6th grade. A green wool, too itchy, but I wore it every day. She said she kept it. Found it while cleaning last week. Still had my name stitched inside, letters faded from the wash. Maybe I didn't say things right. Maybe I never understood how much it cost you. Maybe I didn't want to. That was it. 3 maybes. No sorry. No, I was wrong. Just memory. And fabric. And maybe. That was the closest she could come to reaching for me. I folded the letter. Pressed the crease slow. Didn't cry. Didn't tear it up either. I opened the drawer beside my desk. The one where Grandpa's letter still lived, worn soft from rereading. I placed hers beside his. Didn't stack them. Just let them sit side by side. Not touching. But not alone. Some ghosts don't need to be chased away. Just named. Outside, the rain returned, soft. No wind, no drama. I looked out the window. The lights in the hallway flickered on, and I knew the women were gathering again. Laughter floated faint through the vents. Low? Easy? I stood. Tucked my chair in. Ran a hand across the table once. Then walked out. Back into the hum of voices, the smell of coffee, the quiet rhythm of something still being built. I didn't carry the letter with me. But I carried less weight. And that was enough.